Hey there, I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of the website techinterview.guide, and I'm here to help people with career advancement and interview preparation. My live stream on Twitch covers topics such as company research, how to build resumes and cover letters, applying for the job, getting through interviews, and what to do during negotiations. I've coached thousands and thousands of people over the years to get jobs at the biggest tech companies in the industry, and I'm here to help you too. The following episode is taken from a longer live stream event and may contain interactions with other people in chat. Check out the end of the episode for more information. Let's get to it. So we're going to do a re-review of a resume that we did for MasterFirewall, who's a user here on the channel. Hey Whip, good to see you in chat. And they went through and they made a number of changes. They said, hey, give me some feedback on my resume last week. So they sent this in about a week and a half ago, and we had reviewed it a week prior to that. Made some of the changes. I'm looking to get into a senior data analyst or data scientist role. I took my phone number off the header. It would be next to the LinkedIn profile. Job note, I was working as a sales analyst and lead replenishment analyst at the same time and at the same company. There was no additional pay included at the time. It was just a role I inherited when a coworker left. Okay, so let's have a peek through here. So again, at first glance, good job kind of keeping everything on a single page. Again, I like to kind of zoom out and kind of see like what's the balance overall on the page and what's going on in there. And overall, the balance of the page seems pretty good. There's still a fair bit of text down here at the bottom in that sales analyst role. If it's a previous role, you don't have to give me quite as many details about it as your current role. So anything that's really current, you want more bullet points on here. So let's dive in. And so they mentioned up on top near their LinkedIn profile that they'd have their phone number on here as well. I think you could probably put the email and phone number on the same line and put the LinkedIn on the one after that. If you've got a GitHub account, I would love to see that up here as well. Technical skills, they've got all their sort of data. Let me zoom out one. They've got a lot of their data analyst kinds of tooling and things on here, and Python with the libraries that they use. The fact that this wraps around onto a second line, I think you could probably put this into bullet points, so it'll kind of conform to a similar format to what you have here, where you've got a bullet point on like the actual data tools that you use, and then like programming languages that you know or something that can support what you claim to know. So I would probably do some bullet points on here. So what I'm thinking I might do here is I'm going to show you how I'm going to kind of take a look through MasterFirewall's resume and see what we can do here. So I'm going to grab a copy of all the content on here, and we're going to go build MasterFirewall a new resume. So I'm just going to Control A, Control C, and we're going to go over to here, and we're going to go to, let's see, I'm going to just do this on a different screen here for a second. And we'll go into private resume reviews, and we'll make a new document in here. There you go. All right. So I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to paste all that content. Now we can see in here that it actually pasted over the actual bullet icon. So that tells me that MasterFirewall actually used a custom bullet on here, which we can use to kind of parse it out later on. So let me show you how I would go through and reformat this, because there's a lot of text. So the first thing I do, I highlight everything, I make it 10-point font. Next thing I'm going to go through is I'm going to go to File, Page Setup, and I'm going to set my margins. And how I like to set my margins, I like to set that top margin fairly small. I'm going to do 0.5 on that, and I'm going to do 0.6 on all the other margins. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set a right justified margin over here, right up against this right margin, so that any dates I have are automatically going to kind of line up on that side of the screen. So I'm with everything still highlighted, I'm going to right click in the bar up here, and I'm going to say add a right tab stop, which adds this little blue marker here, and I'm just going to drag that all the way over to my margin and let go of that. And then from here, what I like to do is on the very first line, I like to insert a table. So I'm going to go Insert, Table, and I make a single row, 2-column table. Now, Google Docs by default is going to add this blank line at the top, and you can't get rid of it. The only thing you can do is shrink it down. So I make that a 1-point font. And then we're going to do MasterFirewall, and we're just going to drag this up into here. And then under here, I'm going to put in like whatever job title I would expect to sort of be looking for. So in this case, they're looking for a senior data analyst or data scientist role. So senior data analyst or data scientist role. So I'm going to just call this like senior data analyst scientist. And we'll just put all that in one. And then over here, we're going to have their email, we're going to have their phone number, and we're going to have their LinkedIn profile. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of, well, actually, we'll make this LinkedIn. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of these things, and I'm going to justify all of that in here as well. Now, if you want, you can drag over this other column, depending on what kinds of URLs you're going to put in here. If nowadays everything's going to be digital, and so you don't have to spell out the URLs anymore. I used to tell people like always put the URL on here because if people print it out, they can't click on anything. But in today's day and age, everybody's going to get a digital copy. So on here, and then I would probably want to see like a GitHub link if you have one. If you don't have one, that's okay. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this border. Oops, let me try that again. Click on the border. Oh, click on this border. There we go. And what we want to do is we want to go down to table properties. And inside the table properties, what we're going to do is we're going to set the table border to be white color. We're also going to go up to alignment, and we're going to set the cell padding to 0. So that's going to push everything right up against the where those lines would have been, so that you don't get this tiny little bit of space that we see where things aren't lining up exactly over here. So I'm just going to go set that to 0. And now we see that this lines up exactly on the left. These line up over here on the right, approximately. And so as we do our other work, then we're going to see things kind of take shape from here. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to set their name to a 20-point font. And I'm going to set their title to be like a 14-point font. All right. So now the next thing that we have is their skills block. And so this is where we would get into those bullet points. And so the first thing I'm going to do is do a subtitle called Data Tools. And the second one is going to be like programming, and we'll just leave it as programming for now. And so this is going to be the Python and SQL on this line. And then we'll put all this other stuff on the first line. And we'll get rid of that trailing comma over here. And then we'll get rid of this line here. So this line was something that MasterFirewall had actually put in like a whole bunch of underscores, which we don't really need to do here anymore. Hey Miller, we were good to see you in chat. Little Lily 16, first time chat. I'm having trouble organizing a solid study schedule. Cool. I'm going to get to that question as soon as we finish up with this resume. So thanks for asking. I will get to that here in a moment. All right, so employment history. So what I'm doing here is MasterFirewall sent in a resume, and so I'm just showing how I might reformat the resume. And again, these are just my opinions on how I might do this. So all these headings I'm going to set to 12-point font. I'm also going to throw some bold on here. And then this is where we get into that tab stop for the date. So because I set that right tab stop while everything was still highlighted, so you have to set that tab stop while everything is still highlighted. Now we can see that we can still see that extra blue check mark over here in the margin. So now when I come over and I click on the left side of the S for September and I hit tab, now it's going to lock it over on that margin for us. Now it's not quite lined up with what we had over here. So it looks like there's still maybe a little bit of padding over on that table. So I'm going to go over, oh yeah, that whole table didn't reset that padding. So there we go. Cool. So now these are going to be lined up on that right margin a little bit better. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to change all these months to just 3-letter months. So just kind of showing folks how I might go through and reformat a resume a little bit here. Now, when we look at MasterFirewall's original resume and some of the stuff that they had on here, so company number 2, and they had company number 1. So this one ended May 2018. This one was September 2018. That was fine. This one was May 2018, which overlapped. So basically what they said is they had two different roles at the same company that overlapped because they took on additional responsibility. This can look a little bit confusing for recruiters because they're going to see, oh, you were at company 1 until May 2018, but you were also at the same company until May 2018. What I would probably do is like blend these together in some way that shows that you were just at the company from May 2016 to May 2018, and these were the roles and kind of what you did in the different roles. They still want to see that progression of skill, but I think that we can lay that out a little bit in a way that these dates aren't going to be as confusing. But the biggest thing that I want to take a look at here is how MasterFirewall was setting up these bullet points and how we can maybe shorten some of these up. Like this one barely wraps over into another line. So is there a way that we can trim these up to where these bullet points don't wrap onto a new line like this? As much as possible, we want to try to keep our bullet points short and concise, especially when there's multiple thoughts and stuff in here. Like this first bullet point is 2 sentences, so could each of these sentences be a bullet point? So that's the kind of thing that we're going to look at here. So this was company 2 in Austin, Texas. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the company as that first line, and then we're going to move this date here onto that first line. And I'll tell you the reason why I'm doing it this way. Because when we get into that other job where we had, this was the other role at company 1 from that date to that date. And then they also had the other role at that company as well. So this was also at company 1. By putting the company first, by putting the company name first, it's going to allow for a little bit easier layout as far as describing what your role was while you were at that company. Now, whether you put a bold on the company name or you put a bold on your title is really up to you. It's really like, what do you want to stand out to them as well? Hey, MasterFirewall, good to see you in chat. Yeah, we're going through your resume here. Random open went well. Good to hear. So I'm just showing some ideas about how I might lay some of this out as far as reformatting and so on, and just talk a little bit about how to blend these two jobs per the feedback that you gave on the resume. So what I decided to do on your resume was to list the company name first and then the role, because you had the role and then the company and date, and then the role and then the company and date, and I think that that's where some of that confusion could come into play. So by putting the company name first, what we can do here is so we can come back over and we can set that tab stop over here. Just bring this back down to 2 or 3 letter months. Also make sure that we don't have extra space in there. Okay. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to take this first date of May 2016 and we're just going to say you were at that company that whole time. Now what we could do is say this role was March 2017 through May 2018. So this is going to show how you had these different roles in these different times and how they overlapped a little bit. So now what we can do is we can actually just do this kind of thing, where they can see a little bit clearer that you were at that company that whole time, but then this was sort of the transition. But this still looks a little bit confusing because you had both of these roles, you held both of these responsibilities, but you started in this role by yourself. Or like you started as this role alone, but then you also took on additional responsibility doing this as well. So what I might do here is leave these dates and say I was at this company for a little over 2 years. They already see from there that you started in May of 2016. And so we can take this off. And you started as a sales analyst. And then you took on additional responsibility in 2017. So we can say additional responsibility in March of 2017. And now we can take that off. Okay, so now these are your two roles. So what we could do here is we can put a bold on the company. And so we want to be consistent with that and put a bold on the company up here. And now they can see that you held these two roles. And now you can give me the bullet points for each of these different kinds of roles. So what were the roles that you did just as a sales analyst? And then what were the additional responsibilities that you took on in March of 2017? So that's how I might lay that out. And then you can come in here and you can pick and choose like which of these bullet points that you want to talk about in here. But one of the things that I was mentioning is like some of the bullet points that you had on your resume are still pretty long, and some of them like only overlap by like wrap around to another line just by a couple of words. And so as much as possible, we want to try to reduce having them wrap around, especially when there's only a couple of words. When we talk about like page layout and sort of data or like layout design, we talk about these like fragmented words on a separate line by itself. We call them orphans, which I know isn't a great term, but like if the word changes, for example, was on a line all by itself, and it's like, okay, what can we change up on this line just to make sure that, you know, we don't end up with this orphan on a line by itself, because it is using a lot of extra space. Now, some of it could be adjusted maybe with font size. Some of it could be adjusted by just trimming out some unnecessary sort of filler words. So you can take out any pronouns in here, like I did this. Well, this is your resume, so you can just say eliminated the need for. So eliminated need for 8+ multi-tab Excel reports, sent out weekly. So how I like to see these kind of laid out is you want to have the verb, you want to have the result, and then you want to have the impact. So you eliminated the need for these things, but you did that by creating something else. And so I would say created Power BI reports that eliminated 8+ Excel reports. And then what was the impact of that? Reducing, weekly emails, or like how are these sent out? Reducing weekly, like you've already used the word report in here twice. So created Power BI reports that eliminated 8+ Excel spreadsheets or something. Like I don't want to be redundant in here, so I might say like something like spreadsheets, reducing weekly, communications. And if you can say like by 10% or something like that, that's just an extra qualifier on top of that as far as like quantifying that information. But that's how I might reduce that first bullet point, by saying what was the verb, like what was the thing that you did, what was the impact of that, and what was the result. This is what people really want to see on resumes, is they want to see, if I hire MasterFirewall at my job, what kind of impact are they going to have? If your resume is just a bunch of bullet points like I did this thing, I did this thing, I did this thing, it's like, okay, well, I'm still going to be interested in that because I want you to come and do that stuff here too. But if I can see the impact that had, then that's just an extra selling point for me. Sorry, I got something in my eye. That's just an extra selling point for me around like why I want to hire you on my team, if that makes sense. So the follow-on sentence that you had here, this eliminated multiple emails for IT supervisors and directors that was received weekly. So you already talked about reducing that weekly. So you created Power BI reports, eliminating eliminating 8+ Excel spreadsheets, reducing weekly communications to directors. Or reducing redundant communication to directors, something like that, right? So now we've kind of brought in the theme of what was the impact of that. So you created this thing, and the result was that you reduced the number of Excel spreadsheets or Excel reports that you had to do, which then also had a cascading effect of reducing communications. Well, in this case, that it was, it was email. So reducing redundant emails 2 directors. So now we can shorten that up even more. As much as possible, I try to get my bullet points to not go underneath these dates, just so the dates can kind of be like more in a visual column, like not a hard column like we did with a table up here at the top, but you can kind of see the dates a little more isolated. But now we got the full sort of explanation of what you said in 2 sentences in a single bullet point that only spanned 1 line. So this is how I try to go through and like clean up a resume, is try to find like the really strong, impactful, like what was the verb of what I did, what was the result of that, and then what was the impact on the team. Now, if all you have is a verb statement of I did the thing, that's fine. If you can say I did a thing and this was the result, that's great. If you can say I did a thing, this was the result, and this was the final impact that it had, that's even better. So as much as possible, you want those 3 things, but if you can only do the 1 verb statement, that's okay too. But that's how I like to go in and like clean these things up. So now we don't need this. So the next one, I automated Excel reports using Python, which increased, so this is also another kind of long statement here. So I automated Excel reports using Python, which increased report accuracy and eliminated 40 hours of work for both the IT business operations, HR team, and the performance team every month. Okay, so let's see. So you used Python. So wrote Python automation to increase report accuracy and reduced monthly, reducing monthly work by 40 hours for HR and performance teams. Now that's going to end up wrapping onto another line, but so we'll just say HR/operations. So again, IT business operations, like, you know, you're kind of showing who the team is, which can be really beneficial too. But I don't know that you need to explain that, because this was part of like the group that you were already in. So you can just say like you reduced it for HR and operations at that point. And so now, again, we've taken out 2 sentences, we've replaced it with just a single one. So those are the kinds of things that I look for when reducing this kind of stuff. Use just what's the verb, what's the result, what was the impact. And so this was the verb. You wrote your Python automation. The result of that was increasing report accuracy, and the impact of that was reducing monthly work by 40 hours. So you eliminated an entire week worth of work for like every month for this other team. You freed up a lot of their time by doing that. That's the kind of stuff that as a hiring manager, I'm like, whoa, you can come and like automate that kind of stuff and streamline that kind of stuff. I want you to do that here too. So those are the kinds of things that I would do there. Cool. So hopefully that gives you some idea of how to do that. Now, when we go back and we look at your original resume here, you had a lot of other content on here, which, you know, as you reduce those bullet points, you may find that there's going to be a lot of extra space on the page. So that could be where you beef up your technical skills a little bit, as far as like, you know, now you've done more than just Python, you've also done automation. And what's the sort of impact of that, and how can, like, what kind of automation have you done? What kind of systems have you worked with beyond just these things? Like, how did you actually set up that automation? Was it a cron job? Was it just a shell script that you ran? Was it something that, you know, you put on a system that was like a serverless kind of thing? Was it a webhook that when somebody else did something, it actually ran your Python script to go do this other work? Like, if you could talk about some of that as well, as far as like the skills and stuff. But what you're going to find is, as you know, we reduced these first 2 bullet points, which took up 4 lines of space, and we replaced it with 2 lines of text. That's going to free up a lot of room on the page. So you're going to need to fill that up with something else. Now, what we could do then is, if you find like, you know what, I got too much space on here now. Well, great. Come in here and bump this from 10-point font to 11-point font. And now we see these orphan words, right? But now you could come in and you could explain like a little bit extra and maybe tack on a couple extra words Or the other thing I might do just to visually keep those dates in a column is I might do a hard return here, and do something like that. So now we kind of see this visual column sort of appearing under here just by wrapping the bullet point intentionally a little bit earlier. And all I did on that is I hit Shift Enter, because if we hit Enter, it makes a new bullet point. But if you do Shift Enter, then it doesn't give you that bullet point, but it'll still do like a carriage return at that point. So a couple of tricks in there that you could do. But yeah, I would try to reduce some of the stuff, because some of the sentences you start with a verb and you don't say I did this, I did this, I did this. And so I think that's like you don't need to put pronouns on there. Like, this is your resume, so I'm assuming you were the one that did these things. Now, if you're part of a team that did these things, then you could say my team did blah, blah, blah. Or you could say my responsibility on the team was to do such and such. Now, you mentioned when you send over the email with the new resume, you said you're looking for senior data analyst or data scientist role. So you're showing me a lot of analyst work here. This was all analyst work here. But if you want to get into a data science role, you're going to have to show me how you do data science. You do kind of show me some of the tooling that you might use as a data scientist, but what have you done as far as like actual data science? And so if you're applying for a data science job, you need that to be really prominent on here. Even if there's like some side project that you did that's showing how you're getting into data science, then I might do like just, do like data science projects or something up here, like do like a little project section where because as you clean up some of these, you're going to have that extra room on there anyway. You're going to have a little extra room on the page. So maybe put like data science projects on here. And then as part of your cover letter, as part of that introduction to the company, you can say, I'm interested in pivoting into a data science role. I've got a lot of analyst background where I can like tell a story with data, but now I want to get into like more of the data science and the processing side of it. Here's a project that I've done to kind of show my progression into that skill because I didn't necessarily do it professionally on the job. Something like that. So you could do like data projects or something like that. And then you could list out projects or something as a section in there. So as you clean up these bullet points, if you don't need it to be 11-point font, and we can just do like 10-point font in here, then we don't need to hard wrap these. So as you clean up all these other bullet points and talk about like what you did and what the impact was and so on, maybe you'll have a little bit of room for a data project on here. And then we'll take out all these things and just stay consistent with the headings and things like that. And so what I did on the headings is I made them 12-point font with bold. Your name up here could be 20-point. Your title under here I made 14-point, but if you find that that's a little big, then you can trim that down. Again, if you want an analyst role, take the word scientist off of there. If you see a data scientist role that you want, take the word analyst off of there. Like, call yourself what you're going to be in that new job. You are a senior data analyst, then leave that as your title. If you're applying for a scientist role, then put that in there instead. So that's why I left both of those in there. So MasterFirewall, I'll share this document over with you in a little bit. Just so you can kind of tinker around with that, and you've got kind of a copy that you can get started, and we'll go from there. Thanks for checking that out. I hope that you found it helpful. I always appreciate feedback, so please let me know what you think. I appreciate any subscriptions, so please tell your friends and colleagues about it as well. Check out the website techinterview.guide for more information about when I'm live streaming and all of my free content. Drop by a live stream anytime to ask questions or message me privately, whatever makes you most comfortable. See you next time.